Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our session today. My name is Brian Mistretta. I am Director of Product Marketing at NICE. I am joined today by our Vice President of Product and Product Strategy, Boris Grinshpun. Hello, Boris.
Hey, Brian, good to see you. Good to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, good to be here with you. We are here to talk about moving from reactive to proactive. Obviously, there's a lot of momentum around proactive customer engagement. It helps build trust and loyalty. It prevents issues before they arise. It enhances customer experience with proactive things like appointment reminders and service updates. It increases engagement. It gives cross-sell. So lots of great benefits. And in fact, I think Gartner said that by 2025, that proactive outbound engagements will outnumber inbound engagements. And I was actually doing some reading, Boris, right before we started this morning, and I ran into a survey that said 92% of customers said that it changed their perception of the company in a positive way when they were engaged proactively. And 87% of that same survey said that the proactive outreach propelled them to take a positive action with the company. So all great things, but as always, there's challenges to standing that kind of stuff up. So we are going to explore a little bit of that today. And Boris, as I mentioned, is our VP of Product and Product Strategy, but also our resident expert on proactive outbound and outbound engagement. So why don't I kick it right in to high gear here, Boris? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing clients face today when they're thinking about that customer engagement strategy and approach? And also, what technical challenges accompany that?
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a fantastic question. I think, as you mentioned, this is a very powerful tool that when done right or when utilized right, is a great strategy for delivering great customer service within your organization to your customers or consumers. Now, we see a couple of different challenges. One of the challenges that we see, first and foremost, is, of course, the compliance challenge. The compliance challenge of understanding how communication should be treated in each specific channels. What are the rules and regulations, either state-specific or holistically specific? And then how do you comply with all of those rules and regulations? So we see that really as one of the most formidable challenges to executing a particular strategy, because people are not sort of maybe aware of some, and those that are aware are sort of overwhelmed by the amount of specificity around these rules. I think some folks may be even familiar. If you talk to a marketer, they know all about can spam. And if you talk to somebody that's doing a lot of digital work, they're very familiar with the CTIA regulations. Some people are familiar with FDCPA and TCPA regulation on the voice side, but sort of bringing that all together, that's the challenge. And I'm super glad, Brian, you asked me the other question around the technical challenge piece. Well, it's the old adage, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. What I mean by that is that we've been very, very quick, and we've been on this enormous ramp to satisfy every department's need for proactive strategy that we see a lot of enterprise organizations. In fact, purchasing technology that doesn't really fit in together, sometimes has overlapping use cases, and sometimes is in conflict. So what ends up happening is the consumer gets bombarded by all of these varieties of messages. Some of them are conflicting, some of them don't really come together. So when it comes really to servicing the consumer sort of has this like one picture of the organization, but the organization itself isn't even aware of all of the ways that they're communicating with their customers. So really this non-integrated, if you will, approach is killing organizations, Brian. I couldn't emphasize that enough.
Yeah. Do you see that being, obviously, we probably have some people watching here that they might have customers, you mentioned state regulations, right? They might have customers in certain states that have different regulations than others. They might have customers in Europe that are, they have to contend with GDPR. What are best practices for kind of, addressing that?
Yeah, look, I think first and foremost, I would say, speak with your compliance officer. I think those folks are very well versed in all of the regulations and applicabilities that come to that. Second of all, I would say find a partner that can help you drive solutions and or rationalize what these regulations mean and how to sort of think about them and the tools that are out there in the marketplace. There's lots of great, of course, technology companies that can help out with that. And then really what I would always say to a lot of folks is sort of like crawl, walk, run. A lot of people get overburdened by the end outcome, but they can't get started. So get started today, comply with rules today that have a high degree of certainty for your organization or your business, and slowly ramp yourself into much more sophisticated sort of model. It would be my general recommendation, Brian.
So if you're doing low-hanging fruit, great recommendation. If you're doing low-hanging fruit, right, and you're trying to amplify that proactive engagement, proactive communication, what is the low-hanging fruit? Do you have any use cases that are good targets for people who are just starting to really kind of realize their strategy or put their strategy together?
Yeah. So the thing that I always recommend to people is have what I would call like a gap assessment and conduct one within your organization. And you may say, well, what could that look like? A nice gap assessment for your organization today would be to understand the reasons that consumers are reaching out maybe to you, where you're answering questions for them very, very quickly. But you could see that if you were sort of one step ahead of this and you notified them, you could have prevented the call, the email, whatever you want, the chat right off the bat. So what I would call like the general dissatisfiers. Address the general dissatisfiers and formulate a strategy against that. Then what I would do is I would sort of create a roadmap from there, Brian, in terms of what are the sort of the next level, either gaps to fulfill or enhancements, if you will. And then find always room to innovate and try things that may be outside of your current bounds of your organization.
We obviously talk a lot about in the customer service lexicon. We talk about channels and the abundance of options that consumers and customers have at their disposal today. Where do you think the industry's headed in terms of that, in the context or through the lens of proactive engagement? Is it voice outreach? Is it more complicated with the omni-channel outreach? Where do you see it going?
I think if we were having this conversation, and I'm not a great predictor of a future, Brian, but we can see where the stats are going. I think somebody would have said voice is dead, however many maybe months, years ago. Voice certainly is not dead. What we're seeing is complicated conversations, more so than ever, are actually being conducted via voice. Now, you may say, Boris, why are you saying that? Like, clearly, we see the rise of digital. Yes, this is true. However, what we're seeing is that the decrease in physical customer service engagements is at such a fast decline that the next channel that delivers sort of a much more personal human touch happens to be a voice or a video channel, what have you. So we're still seeing quite a bit of voice being as a delivery method, especially for high, I'll call it value conversations today. Clearly, we also see the rise in digital. We see a rise in SMS as a communication channel. WhatsApp is sort of coming along, although because there isn't, sort of the same capabilities as SMS, it's not quite there yet. And somebody would have said email is dead, but we see email being still a very, very cost-effective, proactive engagement communication tool. So I think you're going to see actually a rise in all of those particular channels. I don't see one being tremendously cut out of the loop over the course of the next, 2 years, Brian.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, as you're saying, it reminds me, I was doing a webinar, I don't know, it was probably 6 months or so ago, and I was going on and on about the explosion of digital channels and the preference that people have for it. And somebody actually did ask the question, I have a lot of older customers, or I have customers that live in rural areas, and they still prefer voice. That has always hung with me, so I completely agree with what you're saying there. We talked about compliance. Obviously, again, in the context of things like AI and so on and so forth, data plays a big role in shaping the proactive engagement. What role do you see it playing, and how does it contribute to where can it help you or where can it hurt you if you aren't using your data efficiently and effectively in outbound?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Brian. I view data being helpful in a couple of different manners. One way that I view data is we are sort of done, and you probably know this more so than anybody, in this conversation from a marketing perspective. We are done with these sort of like enormously massive campaigns that are sort of a one size fits all. So if there's folks here listening in, you're a marketer, firsthand that the more specific and a more targeted a campaign can be, especially with data or enhanced with data, the more successful your outcomes can be. And the tools now give us the capability to really have very, very targeted campaigns. And there are now, of course, predictive analytics tools that can really drive down to a micro segment, one that wasn't really sort of possible to create many years ago. I think the second piece of that is also data related, which is really around personalization. The personalization of content really needs to be there. And it's not only the personalization of the content that's delivered in the text message or in the mail, it's really the personal delivery of whatever message maybe your agent may be speaking to the customer about. So this is a sort of a pre-tailored guide or in conversation guide to the agent that can help them steer the conversation that's very, very targeted. And lastly, I would call this the non-traditional utilization of data. All of the consumers are pretty smart, right? And we have a filter. We don't like to burn too many calories, Brian, in our head trying to figure out whether that email is valid, not valid, whether it's garbage or not. So what we're seeing, of course, is the utilization of data on the end delivery of a voice phone call, email message, or SMS. So in other words, what I am here to say is do not be a spammer. Utilize the data resources that you're utilizing through your technology platforms to ensure that your calls are properly marked and your SMS messages are being consented to. You have proper consent from the consumer, and you've done the proper process of registering, whether that's email domain or whether that's that short code or 10DLC number for texting. So those are sort of like the three ways that I think data is really, really powerful from a proactive manner and perspective.
Yeah. Really great insights there, Boris. So obviously there's a lot of options out there. There are a lot of vendors that can make this happen. Let's talk a little bit about what customers or what our audience here should be looking for in a vendor. And then kind of a part two of that question is, what is unique about the Livebox by NICE solution that the other providers aren't able to deliver?
Yeah, so I think like you said, Brian, there's a lot of really great and fantastic solutions. I think one of the first and foremost things that anybody should be looking at is really somebody that's going to partner and it's going to be right for your business. I couldn't emphasize this enough. So from that perspective, you should really partner with an organization that really understands your business, understands your goals, understands your outcomes, and one that you could see yourself sort of achieving your first and foremost goal immediately. Let's call it within the first 30 days with, and one that you can grow into over the course of the next, let's call it couple of years as your organization matures. We're really partial here to a platform play, meaning getting into an ecosystem and then sort of spreading out wider as you see fit within your organization. So that's kind of the recommendation that I would make. We're also very partial to having actually practitioners that you're speaking to at the technology company, meaning people that were within your shoes that can direct you and tell you, hey, look, I've done this before somewhere else and it hasn't worked out. So I guess it really just goes back to really being a good partner from that perspective. As far as the second part of your question, Brian, what is it that we do here at Livebox? We provide all of the key channels of communication from a proactive engagement perspective with our customers, whether that's voice, email, SMS, chat, WhatsApp, as well as others. We provide a contact center CRM solution that our customers can utilize to really hone in on their strategies, deliver that great customer experience, and guide the agent throughout the conversation, as well as be able to discern insights, whether those are index data or non-index data, and be able to create a feedback loop where people can train agents and ensure they're doing the right thing. They're taking care of the customer on every call. So that's a bit about us. We've been doing this for about 20 years, Brian, in the space. We're obviously glad to be part of the NICE organization. So thank you for having me or thanks for asking me on that particular topic.
Yeah, and it really has been fantastic having the Livebox, the center of excellence that you guys have spent decades developing, really be part of the NICE family, as focused and as much as CX is woven into our DNA and our management fabric. It's every bit as the same as on the Livebox platform. And there's a considerable number of experts that are standing by at the ready to speak with anyone that has a question about this. I am also going to include in the chat, in our chat here today for the session, a couple of links to some content and some assets that might help our audience members understand our solution a little bit more. But these are really fascinating insights, Boris. This is, as always, I do always love talking to you about talking shop with you about this stuff. So great to have you on here. I'm glad you made the time to speak with me and speak with our audience, and greatly appreciate the time.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everybody attending today.
All right, everyone have a great day, and do look for those links in the comment section.